All right, welcome to the revolution. I've got my Operation Hope shirt on today. That's where this segment came out of. So it's of course an effort to unite left, right, and center to take back our government. This isn't so that we agree on all the issues, but it is so that we can actually have an honest government that serves the people. And clearly we don't have that now. So I'm gonna show you guys some things that affect the right wing as well in a minute. And I'm gonna show you something that proves spectacularly that we don't control our own government. That's also coming up in a minute. But I want to start with something that's awesome. What we're doing here is we're crowdsourcing the revolution. So we're asking you guys, it's of course a political revolution and not a physical or violent one. So we're asking you guys to put together things that might be able to help us track who the good guys and bad guys are in politics and begin to effectuate change. So along those lines, I found out today that Aaron Baker, who is one of the folks out there that are participating in this, created this tracker in Trello. That's a project management software. And it allows people to see the status of the bills in Congress that pertain to the pillars of the populist plank. So the populist plank is, banning private equity from buying residential real estate to bring down housing prices, lowering drug prices, increasing wages, anti-war, anti-corruption, and paid family leave. And as Aaron found out, there are bills that are related to that in Congress now. So, and I went on that link, and all the links we'll put in the description box if you're watching this later on YouTube. And so one of the bills is, of course, unsurprisingly introduced by Bernie Sanders, right? But then one of the other bills on paid family leave was introduced by a Republican senator from Nebraska, Deb Fischer. I was like, really? So, we'd have to look into that and to see if it's a real paid family leave bill or if it's some sort of trick, right? But if a Republican from Nebraska is supporting paid family leave and it's a real bill, great, wonderful, let's jump in it, right? So I'm super happy to give Republicans credit if they do the right thing. That would be amazing, right? So I love that project. That's a beautiful project. And so we've got another project, corruptionwatch.us, that's now put in all the legislators, all their funding, and all their bills. The next part's really hard there, where we try to sort out and see, do the donors match their votes, right? And we're in the middle of that project. And again, it's you guys. I told you, like, we at the Young Turks, we try our hardest, but we don't have enough resource to be able to do all this on our own. And boom, you guys jump in and start creating this beautiful change and allowing people to track this stuff. And Aaron, I learned from your project. And so I want to look into those more and see if we should support any of those bills or all of those bills. So the populist plank is super popular. I've so far, literally no one that we've asked has disagreed with it. And you guys are reaching out to your state reps, to your national reps, and they're signing on. In fact, I think I have an update on that in a second as well. So way to go, guys. Great job crowdsourcing. Now, I promised you guys something that shows that the American government is not on our side. And so, unfortunately, it's on the one issue where it's most brazen. They are not on our side when it comes to so many things. They're always on the donor side, no matter who the donors happen to be. But in the case of Israel, they really take it over the top. So I wrote about this story that had come out where the Israeli settlers had done yet another terrible act, and in the story they mentioned, oh, by the way, Israeli settlers have beat 6 Americans to death in the last couple of years. And wait, did you ever hear about that in the news other than from us? And maybe a couple other good places like Drop Site News, Breaking Points, and stuff like that. So all the honest people are covering it, Dave Smith, etc. But of course, traditional media is like, shh. But when you look into the details, that's where it's amazing. And I said there was no accountability. And so somebody on social media said, on X particularly, said, Grok, is this really true, right? There's no, as saying like, there's no way that that's true, right? So Grok wrote this. Based on reports from sources like Al Jazeera, Truth Out, and Arab Center DC, here are the documented cases of US citizens killed by Israeli forces or settlers since 2020, last 5 years as of December 2025. Repercussions were limited to US calls for Israeli investigations with no charges or sanctions reported. So yes, I was 100% right. There's never been any accountability. I'm gonna give you the specifics in a second. But the part I was wrong about is that it's a higher number. Now it's because it's a longer year range that Grok used, but great, wonderful. That he's actually getting the truth to people who are like trying to pretend to do propaganda, right? So get a load of this, okay? So Grok listed the cases. Omar Assad, January 2022, West Bank, died after IDF detention. US sought probe. Israel found no link, no action. So a US citizen is killed by the IDF in detention. The US asks for a probe and Israel goes, no, shut up. We're not taking any action at all. You'll see that that is a pattern here. Shireen Abu Akleh killed May 22nd, 2022 in West Bank, I should say. A journalist shot by the IDF. US resisted FBI probe, no charges. You didn't read that wrong. Our own government told the FBI, do not probe an American journalist being murdered by Israel. This is amazing. That's our government saying, no, you are to work for Israel, not for America. Now, when the Saudis murdered an American journalist, it was the biggest news story in the world, and it should have been. And we were furious, and there was calls for accountability for Biden and Trump. It said they did nothing ultimately, right? But people were outraged by that. The Israelis kill an American journalist, and it was an assassination. And CNN confirmed it, the American government confirmed it, but our own government says, shut up. FBI, don't dare investigate this murder because it's the Israelis who did it, and we're owned by the Israelis. Stand down. They're allowed to murder any American they like. Again, hyperbole? No, let me keep reading the list. So far, 2 for 2, no accountability, active blocking of investigations on behalf of Israel. Okay, next, Tawfiq Ajak, I'll hurry up here. January 2024, West Bank. Teen shot by forces / settler. US demanded investigation, none concluded. Mohammed Kadur, February 2024, West Bank. Teen shot by forces. US called for accountability, no response. They don't even give us a response. That's how little respect they have for us. Jacob Flickinger, April 2024, Gaza. Aid worker in airstrike. Israel dismissed officers, no US sanctions. Let's pause there. That's the only one where there's any shred of accountability, where at least the officers who murdered him were dismissed. They weren't arrested, there was no extradition, there was no nothing, right? But at least they were dismissed. Why? Let me read you his name again, Jacob Flickinger. He's the only non-Muslim American on the list. So if you're a not Muslim American, we care a smidge about you. Okay, but we're not gonna call for arrest of anyone. That's ridiculous. It's beloved Israel. They can still murder you, but the officer who ordered it is gonna get to retire and have his pension and probably get hired by someone else in Israel as a hero. All right, Aishanur Agi, September 2024, West Bank, activists shot at protests, US deemed unjustified, no probe. Kamal Jawad, October 2024, killed in an airstrike, US expressed alarm, no follow-up. Amir Rabi, April 25, West Bank, teen shot by forces, US offered condolences, no accountability. Saifullah Musalet, July 2025, West Bank, beaten by settlers to death, US urged probe, unclear outcome. Sources note at least 9 to 10 cases since 2022 with patterns of impunity. Exact lists vary. Yeah, that's not a pattern of impunity. That is 100% or 98% impunity. Yeah, so now, for some, you might look at that and go, well, they're just Muslim Americans. Think about how devastating that is for Muslim Americans. That, oh, yeah, we say in America, equality and justice for all. But if another government kills you, we don't really count you as an American. We're not gonna do any accountability. let alone if it's Israel. Now reverse it. Imagine the Palestinians had murdered 10 Jewish Americans. What do you think America would have done? Do you think they would have said, oh, Palestinian Authority says there's no accountability, nobody's gonna get arrested? Yeah, that's okay, no big deal. Kill them all you like. You know that's not what would have happened. You know there would have been hellfire, and we probably would have destroyed half of Gaza or half of the West Bank. And we should protect our citizens. I don't care if they're Jewish American, Muslim American, Christian American, or any other kind of Americans. And so, and when we do that, we should not be, by the way, we shouldn't wipe out anyone, okay? We should ask for justice and only justice. We shouldn't ask for anything beyond that. But here, our own government won't even ask for justice when our own citizens are murdered. It's amazing, it's amazing. So don't tell me Israel doesn't control our government. That list is definitive proof that Israel completely controls the US government. Anything else is absurdity, absurdity. Why wouldn't we ask for accountability for the murder of our own citizens? Of course they control us. So it's disgusting, I can't stand it. So they say, oh, people will say, oh, why are you so obsessed with Israel? Well, first of all, they're doing a genocide with our money, that period, okay? But if you need to go beyond that, what other country controls us this unilaterally? None, zero. Does Poland have this kind of power? Does Jamaica have this kind of power? Does another economic superpower, Japan, Germany, China have this kind of power? No, only Israel. So I'm sick of it. I'm disgusted by it. I can't stand it anymore. And I don't care what they call me. And that's what they always do, right? The way that they have this control is anytime anyone opposes their control, anti-Semite, destroy them, ruin their careers. You have no idea the attacks we're getting behind the scenes, let alone in front of the scenes, right? So we have got to get rid of Israeli control in this country. We've got to get rid of all the control that all the donors have in this country. Now the oil companies are driving us into war for Venezuela and the defense contractors. Why? Why do we have to die for ExxonMobil? Why do we have to die for United Health because they won't cover health? Because we're in privatized health insurance, and 70,000 Americans die every year because they don't have health insurance. Why do we have to die for Israel? Why do we have to die for all these donors? It's disgusting that this so-called democracy has been hijacked by the most corrupt people on earth. All right, that's what we're trying to fix here. All right, and now back to the updates, some good ones in here. And I love whenever you guys work together from all stripes, all Americans. So Henry provided this update about the state captain project, because we're trying to get the different states to organize as well. And he explains, we had a state captain meeting on Monday. We set up a signal chat. People talked about different efforts they've been doing, contacting volunteers and elected officials. Tony talked about his meeting with Paige Boschman and the fact that she agreed to sign on to the populist plank. God, I love that. There was also a lot of discussion about specific candidates to put pressure on. In New Hampshire, there's an open race for a Senate seat, an open race for one of the congressional districts, and a primary challenge in the other one. Henry, way to think this through, way to organize this, and all of you guys. And Tony, way to reach out to your reps and get them to sign on to the populist plank. I love that. So keep going, guys. And he went on, there's a lot of candidates to put pressure on there, referring to New Hampshire. In Massachusetts, there's a competitive Senate election. Also, Ayanna Pressley is the rep for several of our volunteers, and she may be willing to sign the populist plank. Crystal talked about how she's able to personally contact Lisa Murkowski. That'd be great to get a Republican. I mean, Lisa Murkowski is a kind of an independent who caucuses with the Republicans, was a Republican for a long time. She's in the US Senate, of course. That'd be great to get her. Theoretically, the Republicans also agree with the populist plank. Their voters totally agree. Their politicians are a different question. Same for ours. Ayanna Pressley, there is no reason why she shouldn't sign the populist plank. None. She's a member of the squad. Let's see what happens. Way to go, guys. Keep going. Okay, punk rock progressive as an idea to send to members of Congress. So let's check that out. He says, I recently started sending a draft bill summary to members of Congress that would remove their taxpayer-funded health care and require all members of Congress to acquire their health care through the ACA marketplace like every other American who doesn't have employee-provided health care. I explained the obvious advantage of how it would motivate their desire to either repair the shortcomings of the ACA or preferably consider the merits of a single-payer healthcare system. He continues, so far I've only sent out the draft to Ro Khanna because I feel he would at least understand the bill. And my own representative, James Clyburn, where I understand there's no chance of consideration. And I'll interject here, that's because Clyburn is one of the most corporate Democrats in the country. Anyway, any other ideas on how to reach all reps? I plan on sending the draft to MTG too, since can't believe I'm even saying this, she's become more aware of the world around her, but it can't hurt. Thanks, full disclosure, I had ChatGPT write the bill. In summary, I figured if members of Congress could use it, why couldn't some schmo like me use it? I checked it over and it looked good to me. Guy, so that's great. And look, your bill doesn't have to be perfect. It's okay. You get them the bill and their job is to, have their staff craft it and then put it out there, right? So is that a bill that's likely to pass? Absolutely not. They're never going to take away their own health care. They have amazing health care in Congress. The scraps are for the rest of us, are for the masses, for the plebeians, right? So now having said that, I love that you did it because all you need is a Republican and a Democrat to co-sponsor a bill to get it introduced. It at least embarrasses the rest of them, right? Okay, why aren't you doing this? And yeah, if you took their insurance away and made them go through ACA, they would want to fix that so quick. And then would it, get them to do Medicare for all or any kind of universal health care? No, because then the insurance companies and the drug companies would come in with unprecedented bribes, so much bribes, they wouldn't have to work for health insurance at all. They wouldn't have to worry about it. But still a great idea. And this is how you expose politicians for the crooks that they are. All right, now Cicero is encouraging servers to leave messages for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker. Let's listen in on what he has to say. He says, I went on Marjorie Taylor Greene's YouTube channel and left a comment encouraging her to stay in the fight. By the way, this is me saying I agree with that. Continuing back with Cicero, I also left one on Tucker Carlson's channel, encouraging him to run. Something to realize about the right is the key to the right is that they tend to like gender roles, and right-wing women want men to be strong and defend them. So it's probably extremely hurtful for MTG to have the man she was fighting for turn on her and call her a traitor. The reason I want Tucker to run is because I want populist conservatives in Congress to have strong male leadership. And he said, here's a link to both of their channels. I want anyone else here who's conservative to leave a comment. So we're putting those up there, but you could also see the links in the description box. So we'll always have those. Okay, so look, I think encouraging conservative commentators and politicians to do the right thing is beautiful. Great. And you do it any way you're comfortable with. It's not my business to tell you how to do it, right? And everybody has their own language, their own references, their own priorities. So if you think that messaging is going to work to get them to do things we agree with, fantastic. And look, so why have I been more open to Marjorie Taylor Greene? Because she's been honest and she's been more open to the American people and to serving them and not the donor class. Why have I been more open to Tucker? Because Tucker is being honest about Israel and the Epstein files and so many other things that we now agree on. And then what I thought one of the most amazing things that happened, and I know since it was related to us, it wasn't reported anywhere else, God forbid. But Marjorie Taylor Greene signed on to Ro Khanna's bill to lower drug prices. Now we're way past Epstein files in Israel and all that. We're into domestic issues. And so that was great. It was kind of an awakening. That's why I didn't want her to leave. She's one of the few honest members of Congress. Well, by the way, on the things we massively disagree on, at least she's still honest, right? So for example, earlier in the show, we did story, and one of you guys reminded us about January 6th, that she said that if she had done January 6th, they would have finished the job, right? So that's obviously something that I massively disagree with. But is she being honest there? Yeah, she's giving you her honest opinion. And I'll take an honest person over these corrupt politicians any day, because they're going to tell you what they think to your face, whether they agree or disagree. And then we can have debates like Americans in a democracy, like we're supposed to. But when you realize you deal with honest actors, you realize, oh, we actually agree on a lot more than we realize. The job of a lot of these politicians and the media is to drive a wedge between us, so we don't realize that we actually agree, I think, on about 70% of the issues. All right, so great job, Cicero. Mark Card Shark is proposing a unification ticket. This is a very interesting idea. Obviously, people have thought about this in a couple of different ways, but now I'm a little bit more open to it than I have been in the past. So here, let's listen to Mark. Since we're now in somewhat of an agreement with conservatives, take it a step further, a unification ticket with true populists from both sides who could run on those issues that are in agreement, as well as the ability to come together and to debate, negotiate, and compromise on issues that we are not in agreement. Working together for the American people will stifle corporate rule to solve agreed upon issues quickly and force a realization on the American people that division does not have to be the norm. When this comes to fruition, TYT will go down in history for bringing the two sides together to defeat our oppressors. And he wrote that in tyt.com/ideas. So, okay, look, in the past, I've been against a third party because it costs so much money to set up. Used to be about 10 million, now it might be close to 20 million to run a presidential campaign, because you have to get onto the ballot in 50 states, and it is very difficult, right? And takes up a lot of resources. So having said that, I don't know, man. Like, I think the right thing to do is take over for now. When we get into the politics of it, outside of the the unified revolution, I think my thesis has been the best way to do it is through the Democratic primaries. Like, Trump took over the Republican Party through the Republican primaries. He was an outsider, and given enough press coverage, he was able to win. So we can get someone to get enough press coverage. I think we could do that in the Democratic primary. But if it turns out we can't, then we'll have no choice left but to start a third party that's a unification party. And Mark Card Shark, your comment got me thinking about it more. And I think that the way that if I were going to set up that, if I was going to help set up that party, what I would say is, let's promise the American people that we are going to do all the things we agree on first. Let's promise that we're going to take no corporate PAC money, no foreign government money, voters first, Americans first. And on the things we disagree on, we'll have some sort of system, as you're suggesting here, for how to resolve those. But we're not going to prioritize the things we disagree on, which is what politicians and the media do all the time. So you lose focus on the things we agree on. Because the things we agree on, the donor class doesn't want. They don't want you to have higher wages, because that drives up their costs. They don't want you to pay lower drug prices, because that lowers their revenue. They don't want you to pay lower gas prices, because that lowers the oil companies' revenue. If you start a war with a large oil producer like Iraq or Venezuela, not only do you get to steal their oil afterwards, but in the midst of that, oil prices shoot up. And for the same exact cost, their revenue goes sky high. Defense contractors' revenue goes sky high. So that is why all of our politicians, not all, but almost all of them, are scum who raised their hand, who said, I will be bribed. I'm open for bribery. I'm open for an open auction. Please, oil companies, defense contractors, Israel, whoever it might be, come bribe me, and I will do whatever you want, and I'll bury what the voters want. I'll bury it so deep they'll never ever get it. And honestly, that's been our government for at least the last 40 years, since the Supreme Court legalized bribery back in 1976 and 78. So that's why we got to get our government back. And the way to do the primary way to do that is to get a president on our side. And not just because the president can do executive orders, but the president has the bully pulpit. If we have a president that's on our side and honest and smart and strategic and strong, you would be shocked at what we could get done. Absolutely shocked, because our whole lives, we've grown up in a system that is meant to depress you, make you cynical and pessimistic so that you lose all hope and you give up. Do not give in to that. If you give in to that, they win. So whether it's through the Democratic Party, or by the way, I mean, God knows, maybe populist right does something interesting, right? Within the Republican Party. But if not, a combined ticket, it would be much harder to put together. But at this point, it is not impossible. And whoever it is, 2028 is non-negotiable. We must win. Because if we don't win, the window is going to close. AI, Palantir, and the establishment is going to grow more and more oppressive. They're going to start surveillance inside America that is going to be unprecedented. They're openly talking about how they practiced in Gaza, how to surveil everyone. And you see what they did in Gaza. So that's their laboratory, and the rest of the world is next. We can't let them do that. We have to win in 28. All right, last one here. CureCom is working to stop the ICE raids, and they wrote in, Cure Corn. I live in Chicago, and this is not my idea, but I figured I'd come over here to share that what my and other organizations are collaborating on to stagger or stop the ICE raids from continuing in our communities. ICE contracts with AT&T for their communications. If we have 100,000 or more people pledged not to buy AT&T to upgrade through the holidays, we think the pain of that will be greater than the pain of cutting ICE contract, their ICE contract, which is our demand. We are still formulating how we're going to increase the pressure if they don't do it by the holidays. But I thought to share it here because I keep hearing the Noble Mobile ads, and I was thinking there might be a good collaboration there as well. In the meanwhile, if you want to sign the pledge, you can text drop ICE to 51767. That's drop ICE to 51767. Okay, so guys, the ICE raids, I think that's a political issue. I think that is one that separates us. I'm on the left, and so I'm totally against those ICE raids. But I know some on the right are in favor of them. To me, that's a super important issue as someone who cares about, our government. I'm not sure that it's a revolution issue, except for the ICE agents being masked and no badges. That's un-American, and we shouldn't allow that, okay? So if you're gonna do the ICE raids and you're proud of it, show your faces, show your badges, okay? But thank you for bringing that up for the people who care about that issue, including myself. And we even, because it was an interesting suggestion and a good suggestion, we let the people at Noble Mobile know about it too. So I don't want to get into an ad here for our sponsors. So, but I appreciate you pointing that out. But what I'm doing instead is publicizing your project, which is Drop ICE. You text it at 51767, right? So, but most importantly, guys, look at all these great ideas at tyt.com/ideas. And look at me recognizing them, us recognizing them, and bringing them to you. So we can do this together. No way that it's easy, but nothing worth doing is ever easy like that. You know how the real world works. When power is entrenched, it does not want to move, and it constantly adds more power to its own power. It uses that power to gain more and more leverage. And so that's how they took over politics. That's how they took over the media. Now it's our job to unify enough people to create enough leverage to be able to fight against almost all the powerful elites. And that is a hell of a fight. That is a revolutionary fight. And that's the fight we have to do. And if the left tries it on its own, it will not be able to succeed. If the right tries it on its own, it will not be able to succeed. For the first time in our lives, we have to unite to beat back the powerful elites who have grabbed control of our government. You know what I think? I think the number one way to do that is to get money out of politics, because that is the core issue that really is driving all of this. But I appreciate all of you guys that are chiming in, that are making this work. So you know what? As I part here, I'm going to read 2 more suggestions that just came in while we were doing the show. In fact, I'll read you 3 comments real quick. Benjamin says, then if we could connect all these politicians and companies to products to boycott, hit them where it hurts. Yeah, I hear you. We should put a lot more energy into using our economic power, not just in the case of boycotting Israel, but boycotting companies that bribe our politicians to their own advantage. So it's a good idea. These are coming from our members on TYT.com. AKA Delaware Dragon writes in, could we add banning private equity from buying healthcare service providing companies as another populist plank? So one thing at a time, it's a perfectly good idea. Let's push these 6 that we have now, and then maybe we come back around to that. If we can do it in real estate, then your idea is going to go to the top of the list, right? Because that means that's a thing that can get done. So, but private equity is super powerful. They are the richest people in the world. So getting them to stop buying residential real estate is already going to be enormously difficult. Let's do that one first, and if we can, then we'll move on, but great idea. Last one, Don Dada Dragon said, Cenk, I found out the representative of the district that represents my old base, Joint Base Lewis McCord near Seattle, takes AIPAC money to the tune of $317,000. She represents 40,000 of my brothers and sisters in arms. Do you think exposing this fact is better than asking him to outright stop accepting bribes? I noticed she's taken an additional $30,000 since the summer. I don't think my voice will honestly change her mind. Well, you could do both. First, ask her to stop taking the money. And then when she doesn't do it, which she of course will not do it, then yeah, you should. Look, you're a veteran. Maybe you go to the base and you ask them to stop supporting her. I mean, you can't politicize things in the military, I know that. I don't know how it would work, but you're gonna have better ideas than me. But yeah, you should definitely out her. Everyone should out every representative taking AIPAC money. Because if you take AIPAC or Israeli lobby money, you're literally saying, I'm gonna work for Israel. Those PACs are to support Israel, period. Why would we want you to work for Israel when you're supposed to be our representative? Why would I want you to work for any other country? That's insane. So it's the only reason why people don't think it's insane, because our media goes, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. No. Millions of dollars given to these politicians won't affect them. They're just voting for Israel because they happen to also coincidentally love everything that Israel does. What a bunch of pathetic liars. How absurd that they claim to be in news. That's not news. That's junk propaganda to protect the powerful. Okay, well, somebody just wrote in, so I'll do that one too. Panic on Funkatron says, easy thing for all of us can do. Anytime a politician texts you, tell them you want them to go on TYT for an interview to see where they stand on the issues. People do read those texts, so the more of us who do it, the better. Wow, I never even thought of that. That's a good idea. And I didn't know, I read it blind, so I didn't know you were gonna tell them to come on TYT for an interview. I'll take it. But there's a lot of things you text back, and they're not all profane. You ask them for real things. Ask them to sign the populist plank. I mean, this brother's trying to help out TYT, right? And I'm redirecting it. But yes, ask him to go on TYT because we'll give him an honest interview. Ask him to sign the populist plank. Ask him to support our voters and not another country and not corporations. All right, another good idea. Love it. Okay, you guys are amazing. I can go all weekend. And thank you for caring enough to want a revolution, to get our democracy and our government back for Americans, for us, the voters.